So on the movie Crawl, I've got Peter Broderick consulting us on distribution, and he introduced me to audience feedback screenings, and I had never done them before, nor did I know much about them. And since I've done them, they have helped me so much make a much better movie than the cut that I had that I thought was really good. And so when I put up my last post about audience feedback screenings, I got a lot of emails from people asking me about them. So I asked Peter, since I record all my conversations, so I can always go back and look over what was said, if I could use some of that and share that with other filmmakers. And he agreed. And so what you're going to see is Peter Broderick talking to Nicole and I. The audio is a little bad in some areas, but, you know, hey, it's there. It's free advice from somebody whom is very established in this industry. So here you go. Here's his opinion on audience feedback screenings. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I've done 3 now, and every one creates a better cut of the movie. So here you go. Enjoy.
I recommend to all the filmmakers that I work with that they screen their movies for audiences made up of people they don't know. And this is an opportunity for them to get objective feedback, the opportunity for them to really test a lot of things about their movie that they may think are perfect, but when they watch it with other people, they realize, well, people are really restless in this section of the movie. It's just taking too long. People are confused. They don't really get, what's going on, or they don't understand these characters. The things that are supposed to be funny, nobody's laughing.
Right.
The things that are supposed to be sad, people are laughing. The ending, people aren't really satisfied. They're just kind of frustrated. In some way, the movie hasn't ended. It just stopped. Too much. I mean, there's this fear, if we show our movie, the secret will be out and it won't be special and it'll be pirated and it'll be on the internet and all that stuff. I'm like, forget it. I mean, you're showing it to a group of people in a room where you're not giving them the DVD and they can do whatever with it. They're sitting there and watching the movie. So I don't think you have to worry about it, it ending up online on
Right.
one hand. On the other hand, the idea that nobody should know anything about your movie until you premiere it at whatever point. I mean, you should be lucky that people know something about your movie.
Right.
You should be
Right.
lucky that they can spread the word about your movie, early. It's not like some, secret formula that you've hit on, and if you show it to anybody, then all of a sudden the world will know it. I really think in post, once people have a rough cut, they should think about having audiences see the movie, and they can tell the audiences, we're in the process of finishing the movie, and we really want your candid feedback. We don't want you to tell us you like it because you think we'll feel bad if you tell us you don't like it. But I think the more screenings you can do along the way, the better. I think you're going to learn something from every screening that you do. I think it's helpful to have a discussion with as many members of the audience as you can keep in the room, where you explain that the film is being finished, and that in order to make the best movie, the filmmakers really want your candid response to the movie. So any problems you have, things that are confusing, things that aren't clear, if you can let them know, then they can still, kind of work on that in the editing. And I think there's a lot of goodwill among audiences that if they think they can genuinely be helpful. If they think the movie's done, then their willingness to say negative things is much less because it's not going to be constructive. But if they understand the movie isn't finished, then I think it's a different situation. There's a way where filmmakers can moderate the discussion, but I'd say in the perfect universe, if you could have somebody who's like kind of a friend of the production, but not the filmmakers themselves, people are a little more willing to be candid and to be open and to just say whatever, is bothering them. You can then follow up. I mean, if somebody says, well, I didn't understand this, then the moderator can say, well, explain to me more, but give me a better sense of what you didn't get or what.
Right.
Filmmakers a lot of times are trying to get to a final cut, and then they're going to do the mix, and then they're going to go to color timing, and they're going to have the finished perfect movie. And so I would encourage filmmakers, particularly if they're going to be going into festival mode, and they're going to have the benefit of more audiences and more screenings and more feedback, to keep the film in a state where they can go in and make changes, and it's not going to be terribly time-consuming or really expensive. And when you lock picture and lock the soundtrack and correct the color, then to go back in is more difficult and more expensive, and it also creates kind of a psychological barrier. Like I thought I was done, and now I'm not done, and I'm grumpy. At some point, I mean, you don't want to make changes on your movie forever. I realize that, but with digital technologies, you have the opportunity to go in and make changes in a way that you didn't when you were operating on celluloid. Part of that. So, now, some people could say, well, my film's never going to be in theaters, and I'm not planning to go to festivals, so generally people are going to see it, on TV or, on a monitor, on DVD, or maybe on their computer, so it's an individual person watching the movie, or maybe two people. It's not like an audience. But even so, I think that the feedback it is so valuable to you, because you just don't have a perspective on your own work. You live the movie, right?
That's right.
And you can't get outside of that knowledge and that experience. So I was saying, in the new worlds of distribution and production, you have the opportunity to have audience feedback early on to the idea of the movie, to the trailer, to the sample, to the art, and right. That's all helpful, because in the end, you'll have a better idea of what people are responding to, what people are excited about, what people are don't like. And so the feedback screenings are just another stage of that process where you have the opportunity to have input. And I say to filmmakers, have you screened the movie? And they go, oh yeah. And then I say, well, who do you screen it to? They say, well, people. I go, okay, well, the friends and family and strangers? And they go, yeah. And I go, how many strangers? And they go, 2. I'm about 2. No, 2 doesn't work. And, let's try 30 or 25 or 20 or, whatever, some number. And don't have people that, love you and are rooting for your success, right. Be dominating that screening. It's not helpful. I believe this when I say it, that there'll be things that you think about your movie that you're sure people will understand about your movie. You're sure they're going to respond to about your movie, and then you're going to show it to those people, and it doesn't happen. And that's going to, I think that will illustrate how it's like you're guessing, you're imagining, you think you know, but you don't really know until strangers see the movie. And I think when they see the movie, you're going to find that some of the feedback may be negative and some of it may be hard to take, but it's real.
Right.
It's real invaluable information, and it's out there. You can have it. So, okay, it takes a little time and effort, maybe some money to do the screening. Trust me, it's worth it. And if you don't do it, you're going to regret it.
I think one of the fears that all the young filmmakers have and that we had is that, does this mean that my movie is a failure if I get some negative? But the point is, you can fix it. Like right. We realized that the first screening we had, we were like, wait a minute, there was one point everybody brought up, and I was like, that's just an editing flaw. I can go in and we fixed it, and the next 2 screenings never happened.
I think what you can do, you might not be able to fix the whole movie, but you can make it as good as you can make it, right?
Right.
And in some cases with feedback screenings, which are turned out to be horribly negative, at least the filmmakers have a realistic understanding of the possibilities for their movie. They're not. I say to filmmakers, so what's your target audience, or your first audience you're trying to reach for the movie? And they say, oh, it's for the general public. And I'm like, well, that's not really very useful. Unless you have a few $100 million of advertising money burning a hole in your pocket, the general public's not really useful as an analysis of your audience. And I say, you got to start somewhere. And then they say, no, I didn't make a niche movie. I made a movie for everybody. I'm like, okay, that's good. Well, we got to have a starting point. We got to have a place that you can begin and build on and then cross over to a more diverse audience. And if you don't, then it's going to be a real challenge because the studios are, advertising all their tentpole movies, and you don't have those resources. So you don't have a starting point of people that are going to respond to the movie and spread the word. It's going to be really hard. I really think the more screenings, the merrier. Don't be afraid of them. If you do them, you won't regret it. If you don't do them, I think you probably will regret it.
I can back that up by saying that we had never heard of it. We did it. We took your advice, and it was invaluable. We have a much better movie now and a better understanding of who our audience is and what they expect. Yeah. So it was very good.
I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why people don't do it. But I've never been in a situation where if they did it, it wasn't useful. And I've been in plenty of situations where they didn't do it and later stuff happened, either at a festival or wherever, and they were totally stunned by the reaction. And I'm like, well, you're stunned because you never showed it to anybody. And I see movies all the time when I'm like, I mean, this happened, I don't know, last week I saw a movie and I'm like, and there's there's a real problem. There's some real problems with the movie. And I'm like, they clearly didn't show this to anybody. Because anybody, I mean, pick Joe from the street. Joe would have said, we can't hear the dialogue in like a third of the movie. Or the ending doesn't make any sense. But in the film archer's little bubble, that information wasn't in there. I don't even like hearing the word locked. I don't like even hearing the word that it's a fine cut, because I think, at least in the initial stages of distribution, whether it's at festivals, wherever, you should just have a way that you can go back into the movie and make changes you decide to make. And if you don't allow for that, then you create a financial barrier, maybe a psychological barrier as well, and you're not going to end up with the best movie, or at least in this world. Maybe it's the best movie to show in your bedroom and you watch it, but...
Of course it is.
Such pleasure to hear that it was helpful. When I suggested it to you and you guys say, well, we don't even live in a city and we don't know anybody and how do we do it? And I knew that you could figure out a way to do it.
Right.
Because you're an independent filmmaker. That's what you need to do, is figure out ways to do things that are impossible.